Welcome to the Special Forces in World War II podcast, transmitting on this frequency. This broadcast is your dedicated channel for comprehensive intelligence regarding World War II Special Forces operations. Our transmissions encompass in-depth analysis of their strategic maneuvers, cutting-edge equipment, illustrious biographies, and an array of pertinent subjects. The orchestration of these transmissions is executed by the expert team of the Special Forces in World War II website, a squad deeply immersed in the historical theatre. For further insights, visual aids, and captured moments frozen in time, navigate to our virtual headquarters at worldwar2-soft.com. Your immersion into the front lines of knowledge awaits. Over and out. Welcome back to another episode of the Special Forces in World War II podcast, where we dive into the bold, the daring, and the extraordinary stories, tactics, and equipment of the special and specialized forces whose actions helped shape the outcome of World War II. I'm your host, Michael Wires, and as always, we're here to uncover the lesser-known stories behind the remarkable units whose courage and innovation redefined the battlefield. Most listeners are familiar with the British airborne coup de main against the Caen Canal and Orne River bridges on June 6, 1944. In the opening minutes of D-Day, D Company and elements of B Company of the 2nd Battalion, Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry, part of the British 6th Airborne Division, landed in Horsa gliders and captured their objectives with remarkable precision. Most of us also recall the assault of the 9th Parachute Battalion, also part of the British 6th Airborne Division, against the Merville Battery later that same morning. Despite scattered drops, heavy fortifications, and significant casualties, the paratroopers pressed home their attack and neutralized the guns that threatened the Allied landings. Both actions have come to represent airborne discipline, speed, and tactical surprise. But such an operation had already taken place 4 years earlier. In the pre-dawn hours of May 10th, 1940, German Fallschirmjäger carried out a comparable airborne assault in Belgium. 3 strategic bridges over the Albert Canal at Veldwezelt, Vroonhoven, and Canna were attacked simultaneously. At the same time, Fort Eben Emael, one of the strongest fortified positions in Europe, was struck by assault engineers delivered in DFS 230 gliders. The operation, later associated with Unternehmen Danzig within the broader framework of Fall Gelb, relied on the same core principles: silent gliders released from transport aircraft, precision landings at first light, and small assault teams tasked with seizing bridges intact and neutralizing reinforced concrete defenses before demolition charges could be fired. The objective was identical in concept to Pegasus Bridge 4 years later: speed, surprise, and immediate control of a vital crossing. In this series, we return to May 10, 1940, to examine how this earlier airborne coup de main was conceived, prepared, and executed, and how it shaped the opening hours of the German invasion of Belgium. Before the Caen Canal crossing, before the Orne River crossings, before the Merville Battery, there was the Albert Canal and Fort Eben Emael. In the previous episode, we examined the plan for the seizure of the bridge at Veldwezelt. We analyzed the Belgian defensive system along the Albert Canal, including Bunker N, the trench networks, casemates C and D, and the demolition arrangements prepared to destroy the crossing if necessary. We also outlined the German concept under Oberstleutnant Walter Koch, a glider-borne assault designed to land directly on the defensive perimeter and seize the bridge before it could be blown. On May 10, 1940, That plan is put into action. 10 DFS 230 gliders assigned to Stahl approach Veldwezelt at low altitude. Within seconds, they begin landing on and around the positions of 6e Compagnie, 2e Régiment de Carabiniers. Other gliders descend near the Bildzebaan, along the Kip van Veldwezelt and west of the canal. The attack unfolds simultaneously across multiple sectors. The Belgian garrison consists primarily of elements of 2nd Régiment de Carabiniers, reinforced by detachments of 18th Régiment de Ligne and supporting machine gun units. Their orders are clear. In the event of a confirmed attack, the bridge must be demolished. What follows is a series of engagements fought at close range, in trenches, inside bunkers, along embankments, and between houses in the village itself. Communications are disrupted. Reports conflict. Command decisions must be taken within minutes. This episode reconstructs the fighting at Veldwezelt from the first glider landings onward, tracing the action sector by sector as Belgian and German accounts describe it. In the early hours of May 10, 1940, the sector around Veldwezelt still appears quiet. Belgian commanders believe they are alert. Patrols are moving, telephones are working, orders are clear. Within minutes, that illusion will collapse. So, let's start at the beginning. At 5:20 on May 10, 1940, the 10 DFS 230 gliders assigned to Stahl land near Veldwezelt almost simultaneously. 5 touch down directly on the positions of 6e Compagnie, 2e Régiment de Carabiniers near the bridge. 1 lands slightly farther south. Another comes down farther north. The sudden appearance of the gliders leaves Capitaine Jamers momentarily stunned. He immediately shouts the order to open fire and runs towards his command post. The attack has begun. As German gliders are still landing, Major Drescher requests authority to demolish the bridge. Permission is refused. At that same moment, the glider of Gruppe II, commanded by Oberleutnant Erwin Ellerseek, lands near the Bildzebaan southwest of the bridge. The landing is violent. The glider overturns and is badly damaged. 1 Fallschirmjäger is injured. The remaining men, shaken but still mobile, quickly orient themselves and locate Bunker N without difficulty. Soldiers of the 2nd Régiment de Carabiniers move towards Bunker N. As Ellerseek's squad advances, the Belgian crew fires several rounds from inside. Capitaine Jamers mounts his bicycle and departs in haste, while the rest of his men retreat into the bunker. Lieutenant Bossert and a soldier of the Régiment de Carabiniers, cut off from their unit, follow them inside. Rifles fire through the embrasures. From the observation cupola, Soldat Vranken, Soldat Van Hoof, and the anti-tank gunner attempt to observe the attackers. Their field of vision is severely restricted. Before Jeffke Thomason can close the armored door, a German Fallschirmjäger throws a grenade through the opening. Panic spreads instantly inside the bunker. Caporal Cornet hesitates. The demolition charges for the bridge have not been armed. Radioman Soldat Gustav van Drescher urges immediate destruction of the bridge. Instead, Cornet attempts to telephone his superiors in Lanaken. Others insist on waiting for authorization from Capitaine Commandant Gidelot. To destroy the bridge during what might still prove to be a false alarm would be unforgivable. The remaining Belgian defenders move rapidly to their assigned positions. Jeffke Thomason again attempts to secure the armored door. While he struggles with it, a capitaine and a soldier of the Régiment des Grenadiers force their way inside. Caporal Cornet remains engaged on the telephone, requesting instructions from Capitaine Gidelot. After ending the call, he moves to the radio set. Speaking slowly and clearly into the microphone, he identifies himself as Caporal Cornet of the Veldwezelt bunker. He reports that the bunker is under attack. He repeats the message. From the cupola, Soldat Van Hoof observes 6 German Fallschirmjäger positioned against the wall of the Heisen house. 2 machine guns open fire from the bunker but fail to hit their targets. The defenders lack the means to prevent the paratroopers from moving through the village. They depend on the Carabiniers in their trench positions to maintain covering fire. Then a flamethrower attack begins against the bunker. 2 explosions follow in rapid succession. The first destroys Jan Nicolais's cafe and bicycle shop completely. The second is far more powerful and detonates directly at the bunker entrance. Oberleutnant Ellerseek issues an ultimatum, demanding that the Belgian defenders leave the bunker. Caporal Cornet replies that surrender is possible only if no fire is directed at them. Events now move too quickly for further negotiation. Time is critical and German orders are explicit. The Fallschirmjäger immediately assault the northern side of the bunker. Flamethrowers are brought forward. Hollow charges of 20 kilograms are placed into the hand grenade shafts. The effect is catastrophic. Blast pressure and flames surge through the confined interior. Stored ammunition detonates. Grenades and anti-tank rounds explode in succession. Almost the entire garrison is killed instantly. Café Nicolais is also demolished. The German Fallschirmjäger know that the Belgians use the café as a command post. Its destruction has been planned in advance. The building collapses completely. 3 nearby private houses are reported destroyed in the official German account, although the actual damage extends to additional buildings in the immediate area. Willem Franken and 2 others attempt to escape through the exit. A 20-kilogram hollow charge has already been primed by the Germans at that position. Soldat Van Hoof and Soldat Van Hees are killed at the exit. Franken survives because he is positioned behind them and is wearing a steel helmet. He manages to leave the bunker, but is struck by 9 bullets. Before losing consciousness, he sees that the detonation cable for the bridge demolition charges has been severed. 3 German Fallschirmjäger approach him. One prepares to deliver a final shot. Another intervenes and forces the rifle away. Franken is left alive. He survives his wounds. 2 German medics treat him before he is transported, together with 5 German soldiers, to the Kalvarienberg Hospital in Maastricht. With Bunker N eliminated, the Belgian trench system comes under intense German attack. The heaviest losses fall upon 6th Compagnie, 2nd Régiment de Carabiniers. The platoon defending the right flank of the bridge loses 23 men and its commander, Lieutenant Bossert. 7 additional men are wounded. The platoon has a total strength of 44 men. The losses are devastating. The platoon guarding the left flank loses its officer, Lieutenant Lambers, and 11 men. 7 more are wounded. Of the 88 Belgian soldiers deployed near the bridge, 36 are killed and 14 wounded. The casualty rate is catastrophic. While Bunker N is being overwhelmed in a matter of seconds, the operation is already unfolding beyond the immediate bridge perimeter. The German plan does not rely on a single blow. It is designed to paralyze the entire defensive system at once. When the objective comes into view, glider pilot Opitz lowers the nose of his DFS 230 to gain additional speed. He is convinced that any delay or deviation from the timetable would be dangerous. He approaches the landing area from the southwest. Ahead of him, he notices a large house situated approximately 200 to 300 meters northeast of the bridge. From the terrain model studied during training, he recognizes it immediately as a likely key objective. Several paths lead from this building towards Bunker N and the adjacent infantry trenches. To Opitz, it appears to be the focal point of the defensive position. German intelligence, based on assessments by the Abwehr, had assumed that the buildings close to Bunker N and the bridge housed troops and functioned as a command center. This assessment proves incorrect, particularly in the case of the house later attacked by Gruppe 8. When Opitz selected his target in the final hours before the mission, the large building along the road appeared to be a hotel or guest house, a structure that could plausibly serve as officers' quarters or a command post. In reality, it serves neither function. The glider crosses the left bank of the Albert Canal at the point where earth's spoil from the canal's construction had been deposited, an area known locally as Kip van Veldwezelt. Opitz searches rapidly for a suitable landing site. As the aircraft passes overhead, at an altitude of only 3 to 4 meters, the pale faces of the Belgian defenders below are clearly visible. During this maneuver, the glider makes a sharp turn, briefly entering the potential field of fire of a machine gun positioned near the canal. The gunner cannot engage. His position lies on the higher ground of the Kip, while the glider is flying lower and outside the weapon's depression angle. Opitz veers left, turns the nose south, and touches down in a meadow approximately 200 meters from Veldwezelt. The landing point lies beside a path less than 100 meters from the large house. In fact, he has come down halfway between the cemetery and the small hamlet near the Bilzebahn. No other gliders land in this sector. The landing is uncontrolled and ends abruptly when the glider becomes entangled in a barbed wire hedge. The aircraft swings sharply and comes to an immediate halt. The impact injures Albert Funk, who sustains an arm wound, and Oberjäger Walter Becker damages his Maschinengewehr during the crash. Opitz himself remains unharmed. The Fallschirmjäger disembark immediately. Opitz follows as they rush across the road, dropping down a 1-meter berm and climbing another 1-meter embankment on the far side. They check the ground floor windows of the house but find no defenders inside. Grenades are then thrown through the upper floor windows to ensure the building is clear. After securing the structure, Opitz moves with the squad towards the infantry trenches north of the bridge. The trenches are constructed in a zigzag pattern and are cleared methodically by throwing grenades into every corner and traverse. The infantry trenches in this northern sector are positioned on the Kip van Veldwezelt, a low hill overlooking the village. Once the Fallschirmjäger occupy the trenches, the tactical situation becomes clear. The Belgian trenches face east towards the Dutch border. Because the German assault has come from the rear, these positions pose no immediate threat. No effective fire has been directed at the gliders during landing. The bunkers embedded in the bridge pillar at water level are unable to engage aircraft at such low altitude. The only elevated position dominating the Kip is the nearby church. Although there are no Belgian snipers in the area, the artillery observer stationed in the church tower represents a genuine danger to the Fallschirmjäger now holding the trenches. After the initial fighting, the situation briefly stabilizes. Opitz remains with his squad in the captured trenches. Approximately 15 minutes after landing, he observes 3 gliders to the south, flying too high to land successfully. The squad maintains its position until it is relieved.
I have created the most advanced AI soldier.
The wait is over. Tron Ares now streaming on Disney+.
We are looking for something you've discovered. And some of us will stop at nothing to get it.
Ready?
The countdown is complete.
There's no going back.
Our directive is clear.
Hang on!
Tron Ares, now streaming on Disney+. Rated PG-13.
In the first moments after the assault, the greatest concern is fire from the church. Once firmly established in the trenches, one Fallschirmjäger raises his helmet on a stick above the parapet as a test. A Belgian round strikes the helmet immediately. The presence of an observer in the church tower is confirmed, and the threat remains real. Belgian observers in the church spire open fire without hesitation. Bullets hiss overhead. Susdorf searches urgently for a missing component of his Maschinengewehr while under fire. After several tense seconds, the part is found and the weapon becomes operational. German paratroopers then assault several houses in rapid succession and jump directly into Belgian trenches. The Belgian soldiers inside attempt to return fire, but the sudden and aggressive assault overwhelms them. Unterjäger Hahn advances behind Susdorf and captures 5 Belgians. Susdorf captures 6 more. The prisoners are escorted to a secure collection point. Their weapons are placed across the shoulders of the leading prisoner to prevent resistance or sudden movement. Belgian infantry positioned in trenches near the bunker across the road also open fire. The prisoners are left at the rendezvous point. Susdorf sprints across the road under fire and dives headlong into a trench, landing directly on top of his comrade Paul Schloms, who cries out in shock. The action unfolds at extreme speed. None of the men initially notice their wounds. Schloms has already been shot in the thigh while leaving the glider, but only realizes it once he reaches the trenches. When Susdorf joins him, Schloms exhales in relief at the presence of a comrade. Belgian troops fail to organize a coherent response. Surprise paralyzes command and control. Confusion spreads rapidly. In the chaos, several Belgian soldiers fire upon their own men. After Gruppe 8 secures its primary objective, it advances towards the canal. The next task is to control Belgian troop movement along the waterway. Shortly afterwards, Susdorf and his comrade Fickel move to the canal bank and take cover behind a mooring jetty. On the opposite side, they observe 4 Belgian soldiers standing on a wall. One opens fire and strikes Fickel in the testicles. He screams in agony. Susdorf returns fire and hits the Belgian's steel helmet, but without inflicting a wound. The Belgian appears to surrender. As he climbs down from the wall, however, he opens fire again. Susdorf shouts at him to cease fire and move to the left. Fickel manages to reach the area near the bridge and begins to comprehend the severity of his wound. In the confusion of the opening minutes, no one is able to assist him. He lies in a trench and bleeds to death. Hermann Reuter, who had accompanied Susdorf and Fickel to the canal bank, is also wounded during the exchange of fire and dies where he falls. At 5:35 on May 10, 1940, Oberleutnant Gustav Altmann reports that the bridge is in German hands and fully secured. Belgian resistance in this sector lasts only a few minutes. From within the Belgian trenches, however, the engagement unfolds in a very different and far more chaotic manner. As the northern trenches fall under sudden assault, fighting is erupting just as violently south of the Bilzebahn. The Belgian defense is being struck simultaneously from multiple directions. Meanwhile, in the southern sector of the Veldwezelt bridge, the assault begins with equal violence. The Belgian unit in this sector consists of 3 platoons positioned south of the Bilzebahn and the bridge. A 4th platoon, commanded by Sergeant Regel, holds the northern side beyond the Bilzebahn at a position known as Kip van Veldwezelt. The unit commander, Lieutenant Bosseert of the 2nd Régiment de Carabiniers, establishes his command post in the Nicolas House approximately 50 meters from Bunker N and the bridge itself. 6 DFS, 230 gliders, descend directly onto this defensive position. One lands to the right of the Belgian unit, at the edge of the slope leading down to the Albert Canal. As the Fallschirmjäger disembark, the terrain shields them from immediate defensive fire. A second glider lands near the trench, held by Sergeant Neerink. A third touches down close to the position commanded by Sergeant Lehman, who controls the mortar detachment. A fourth and fifth glider land behind the trenches of Sergeants De Wever and Bernard. The sixth glider, carrying Unteroffizier Erwin Ellerseek and Gruppe II, lands only 50 meters from Bunker N and immediately launches its assault. The Belgian reaction is weak and uncoordinated. The sudden appearance of gliders overhead and the immediate onslaught of grenades and automatic fire overwhelm the defenders. The Fallschirmjäger leap from their aircraft, throw hand grenades, and open fire with machine and pistol unfamiliar to the Belgian troops. Confusion spreads rapidly. Command and control begin to collapse, particularly after Lieutenant Bossert seeks shelter inside Bunker N. Despite this paralysis, resistance at Veldwezelt proves more determined than at Vroonhoven. One glider, most likely that of Oberjäger Helmut Apke, and Gruppe 1 lands alongside the trenches north of the Bilzebahn. Most of Bossaert's men are positioned south of the road. Apke attacks Sergeant Regel's platoon with hand grenades. Within moments, Regel, 2 corporals, and 6 men are killed. The platoon is effectively wiped out in the opening seconds of the assault. South of the bridge, Fallschirmjäger under Oberleutnant Gustav Altmann and members of Squad 5 attack the Belgian trenches from both front and rear. Hand grenades are thrown into the stunned positions. The only organized Belgian response comes from trenches occupied by Sergeant Schaumann's 10th Compagnie, 18th Régiment de Ligne. From the Kip van Hees ridge southwest of the bridge, 3 bursts of machine gun fire are directed at the attackers. They have little effect and merely draw immediate return fire. Belgian hand grenades prove tragically ineffective. They lack detonator caps and fail to explode. This precautionary decision, taken before the invasion by the Belgian General Staff to prevent accidents, now has fatal consequences. Deprived of functioning grenades, the men of the 2nd Grenadiers are left almost defenseless. Any soldier who raises his head to fire is immediately targeted and shot. In the sector commanded by Sergeant Neerink, the fighting is particularly violent. The German gliders have already landed when his men ask whether they should open fire. He shouts that the aircraft are German and orders them to engage. The Fallschirmjäger attack without hesitation, using hand grenades and submachine guns unfamiliar to the defenders. Neerink later recalls how a glider passes so low over his trench that the men barely have time to duck. He is sent to the machine gun position. Running along the trench, he meets Corporal de Pauw and Rifleman Willems and de Lelle. The glider lands near the light machine gun emplacement. Neerink and de Pauw fetch ammunition for Willems. Willems asks whether to fire. Neerink orders him to engage the pilots and crew as they leave the glider. Willems fires 2 magazines before the weapon jams. A second magazine also fails. As Willems struggles with the gun, Neerink attempts to shoot the German pilot at a distance of 20 meters. His rifle misfires. He tries 4 times without success. De Pauw, after firing only 3 rounds, is wounded in the arm. The position quickly becomes untenable. German hand grenades begin falling into the trench. For 30 minutes, the bombardment continues. The Belgian soldiers remain pressed against the earth, disoriented and overwhelmed. One by one, the Fallschirmjäger occupy the trench system. Cries and screams echo along the line, particularly from the heavy machine gun position. Nerink and the surviving men remain under cover until they are taken prisoner at 8 o'clock. Of the 9 men in his trench, 3 are dead and 4 wounded. The trenches commanded by Sergeants Lehman and De Wever suffer similar devastation. Sergeant Lehman later describes the moment when a glider lands directly behind his trench as dawn breaks. He throws himself flat to avoid being struck. He lies beside Private Guarda near the barbed wire. The Fallschirmjäger jumps straight into the trench and throws smoke grenades. Visibility vanishes instantly. Fighting erupts within seconds. A grenade kills Guarda. Lehman fires 1.5 pistol magazines before he is struck in the back by a bullet fragment. He sees German helmets moving through the trench. Moments later, he is hit in the chest by a pistol round. The time is approximately 5:30. Of the 8 men in his platoon, 4 are killed and 2 wounded. After recovering from shock, Lehman notices around a dozen wounded German soldiers lying in the same trench. In Sergeant De Wever's sector, the collapse is equally rapid. Machine gunner Carlier witnesses the destruction unfold. He sees the Fallschirmjäger disembark and has them clearly in his sights. He could inflict heavy casualties. Within seconds, however, a storm of grenades and automatic fire sweeps the trench. Explosions erupt around him. News spreads that Lieutenant Bossaer has been killed. Disoriented and shaken, Carlier flees toward nearby houses, believing they will offer protection. German troops have already encircled Bunker N. A massive explosion follows, then a second. Several houses collapse. Carlier struggles free from rubble that traps him. Unteroffizier Erwin Ellisik and his men demolish the Nikolai's house with 2 cases of grenades and explosive charges, believing it to be the Belgian command post. The building collapses instantly. Several neighboring houses are also destroyed during the assault. The casualty figures for Lieutenant Bossaert's unit are catastrophic. Of 44 men, 24 are killed, including Lieutenant Bossaert inside Bunker N. 7 more are wounded, among them Sergeant Lehman. More than half the unit is destroyed within minutes of the assault beginning. Oberleutnant Gustav Altmann confirms that the operation is unfolding according to plan. He has landed in a shallow depression approximately 400 to 500 meters west of the bridge, positioned between Bossaert's trenches and the Kip van Hees ridge, where elements of the 18th Régiment de Ligne are deployed. Sheltered from Belgian fire, he observes the fighting through binoculars. In the southern sector, coordinated by Pohlmann of Gruppe 6, the Fallschirmjäger are on the verge of capturing the remaining trenches using hand grenades and close assault tactics. 15 minutes later, Altmann meets his squad leaders at the forward command post. It is established in a trench approximately 150 meters southwest of the Albert Canal. The southern sector of Veldwezelt is effectively in German hands. While the southern trenches collapse under grenade attack, fighting is already erupting north of the bridge. The German assault is unfolding simultaneously along the entire perimeter of Veldwezelt. This sector is reinforced by a machine gun platoon from 8E Compagnie. Its trenches run parallel to the Albert Canal on the northern side, positioned on a small rise known as Kip van Veldwezelt, between the village and the canal. At 0030, the sector is still quiet. Van der Velde decides to inspect the nearest sleeping quarters under his responsibility. He fastens his belt, takes his rifle and pocket torch, and moves to the right. Dev, T, and P are on watch. They report no unusual activity. The night remains calm. Everything appears in order and the men understand their duties. After returning to his trench, Van der Velde hands over command to Louis Ancien and lies down to rest. At approximately 1:15, Ancien wakes him. Clément has observed movement on the canal. 2 barges are approaching from the direction of Vroonhoven. Orders are explicit. Between 1900 and 700, all traffic on the canal is forbidden. Van der Velde runs to the command center and telephones for instructions. The reply comes quickly. He is told there is nothing to fear. Everything is said to be in order. The barges are permitted to continue. Van der Velde returns to his position, but cannot sleep. It is now around 3:30. Shortly afterwards, voices are heard. Surgeon Jules Rousseau arrives with 2 men as reinforcements and brings fresh instructions. He warns that vigilance is essential. In the village, men are already moving. The order, "Prepare for battle," is given. It is the 3rd such alarm, but this time they are told it is not an exercise. Few believe it. Van der Velde later reflects that many civilians are consequently surprised in their beds. Rousseau reminds him to return to his battle position. The nearest machine gun to the bridge is located in Van der Velde's trench. 8 men crowd into the position. To the left, a roofed communication trench leads towards Rousseau's position and the village. 5 meters beyond, on the far side of that trench, stands casemate C, behind Van der Velde stretch fields divided by hedgerows. In front, beyond barbed wire, the Kip slopes steeply down to the canal. To the right is a sandbag barricade intended to obstruct any advance from that direction. The men take up their assigned places. Near the sandbags stand Ancien, Pollard, and Tai. Facing the village fields are Clément, Corporal van Tongerloo, and Van der Velde. Dev and Del cover the entrance to the roofed trench. A box of grenades lies beside Van der Velde. He repeats the orders. He and Pollard will man the machine gun. Van Tongerloo will direct the fire. It is 5 o'clock. No officers appear. No further instructions arrive. Suddenly they hear a faint rustling sound from above. They raise their heads, uncertain of what they are hearing. Aircraft with white fuselages circle over Holland beyond the canal. Seconds later, they cross the canal and circle overhead while losing height. There is no engine noise. These are not ordinary aircraft. The wings appear strange. The men do not yet realize they are gliders. They hesitate, unsure how to react. 3 DFS 230 gliders land north of the Bilzebaan and the bridge. One comes down between Van der Velde's trench and Rousseau's position. Another passes so close it nearly strikes them and lands only a dozen meters behind. Within seconds, figures emerge, wearing loose trousers and steel helmets, carrying machine guns and grenades. The Belgians understand instantly the Germans have arrived. The war has begun. Van der Velde reacts instinctively and shouts for his men to open fire. In the confusion, he sees Van Tongerloo take the machine gun and aim at the attackers. Pollard, Ancien, and Clément raise their rifles. Van der Velde does the same. A German advances from the right, a grenade in each hand. Van der Velde pulls the trigger. Nothing happens. He tries again. The rifle fails. He hears similar shouts from both sides. Other rifles are not firing either. The German closes in, arm raised. A cry erupts behind him. Pollard is struck in the head by a bullet. At that same moment, an explosion throws the men violently against the trench walls. The raised German arm remains upright. A grenade detonates inside the trench. Everything unfolds in seconds. A glider occupant moves to the right of the trench. Other Fallschirmjäger jump into the communication trench leading toward the village, cutting off escape. After the first grenade, 5 or 6 more follow in rapid succession. Ancien tells Van der Velde that his legs are gone. He points to 2 bloody stumps. A grenade has amputated both legs above the knee. Blood covers faces, hands, sandbags, and earth. Van der Velde searches desperately for a way to stop the bleeding, but there is no time. Fire comes from every direction. More grenades fall. The men press together in terror. Van der Velde feels Van Tongelou's head against his back. His own head is forced against the trench wall and Clément's gas mask. They avoid bullets briefly, then another explosion slams them down. It is the last of the first series. A short lull follows. Van der Velde looks around. Pollard is dead, shot through the head. Grenade fragments have torn 3 fingers from his right hand. Ancien is also dead, further explosions having destroyed him. Clément groans nearby, repeating that his back is ruined. A grenade has torn open his body. Van der Velde sees a black wound the size of a fist. On his left, Del stares toward the village. Dev is pale, but insists he is unhurt. Van Tongelou complains of pain in his right arm. It is a bullet wound. Van der Velde cannot move. The bodies of Clément and Pollard pin him down. He remains trapped for 45 minutes. T lies in a corner, half on a sandbag, half beneath Pollard. His head is crushed. He is dead. An hour of uneasy quiet follows. 3 men are dead, 3 wounded, and 2 physically intact. Van der Velde and Dev have no contact with command. They have no new orders. They have almost no means of defense. Keeping his head low, Van der Velde glimpses soldiers crossing the bridge calmly. They are not Belgians. The Germans have taken the bridge. He wonders why it has not been demolished. A bullet ricochets off his helmet, forcing him lower. Weapons are knocked aside by incoming fire. Suddenly, a heavy blow strikes Van der Velde in the back. He falls to his knees, fighting to remain conscious. He collapses between Clément and Van Tongelou. Blood fills his mouth. He understands that blood in the mouth suggests lung damage. Van Tongelou asks if he is hit. Van der Velde nods. He believes none of them will survive. He reflects on the absence of Belgian air support and the lack of French or British intervention. He feels abandoned. A whistle passes overhead. Another grenade lands between Clément and Van der Velde. He cannot understand why. They have no capacity for resistance. The machine gun and rifles have failed. Only Dev can still fire a few rounds. Their own grenades remain unused. The detonator caps are stored at company level. Van der Velde later remarks that they would have fought better with rotten apples. The German grenades do not detonate immediately. Others follow and also fail to explode at once. Acting on pure instinct, Clément, Dev, and Van der Velde throw them out of the trench. This action saves their lives. The attack appears to subside. It is still before midday. Nearly all are wounded, yet they cling to life as blood drains away. Van der Velde wonders whether they are heroes or simply survivors. Clément begins to lose control. He takes a bayonet and attempts to kill himself. Van der Velde wrests it away. Clément begs to be shot. Van der Velde speaks calmly of his mother and wife. Clément cries, then quiets. Dev wails in pain. Van der Velde feels his own strength ebbing, weakened by bleeding from his back. Removing his greatcoat and opening his collar, he sees blood flowing from a small black wound near his clavicle. He believes this is the exit wound. Van Tongelou confirms it after examining his back. There is nothing more to be done. They can only wait. An officer from a nearby company approaches, but Van der Velde cannot identify him. The officer speaks to Dev and Del, but brings no information. He promises to search for assistance, but has neither food nor medical supplies. Shortly afterwards, a German Fallschirmjäger appears in the communication trench. sleeves rolled up. He surveys the scene. Van der Velde expects execution. Only he can see the German clearly. The barrel of a Maschinenpistole glints before his eyes. He lowers his gaze, then looks up again, waiting for the burst of fire. Instead, a shout in German rings out. The Fallschirmjäger replies that everyone in the trench is dead. He turns away. Their lives are spared. Van der Velde and Van Tongerloo shake hands silently. Later, another German arrives, pistol drawn. This time, all can see him. He seizes one Belgian rifle and smashes it against the trench wall. It breaks apart. He destroys others in the same manner. These are the rifles that have failed during the fight. Only the machine gun remains. He examines it. Corporal Van Tongerloo signals that they will not use it. The German lifts it by the barrel and throws it into a corner. Without a word, he leaves. Hours pass. The survivors are exhausted and desperate. They encourage one another, clinging to hope of relief forces, though it grows fainter. Footsteps approach again. Hope rises, but it is another German. He points his pistol and orders them out of the trench. Helmets must be removed. Van der Velde indicates the wounded Clement and Dev. The German mutters, recognizing that they cannot be moved immediately. At 1900, Van der Velde is taken prisoner. He has experienced 15 hours of war. Van der Velde and Van Tongerloo are marched to the Dutch border post. Dev is taken to Veldwezelt. They cross the bridge on foot. 100 meters away, Van der Velde sees the barges that disturbed him earlier in the night. He now learns their purpose. If the bridge were accidentally demolished during an exercise, the barges would serve as pontoons for a replacement crossing. Farther north, in the trenches commanded by Sergeants Engels and Paralyse, the fighting follows a similar pattern. The unit commander, Lieutenant Lomberts, falls during the action. Of an initial strength of 55 men, 11 are killed and 11 wounded. The Fallschirmjäger, who play the decisive role in the northern sector, come from Unteroffizier Erwin Ellersiek's Gruppe 2, Unteroffizier Wiese's Squad 3, Unteroffizier Walter Bethke's Gruppe 7, and Unteroffizier Rudolf Toschke's Gruppe 8. West of the bridge, the fighting develops around the trenches commanded by Sergeant Ballet. Captain Jamaeus is near the bridge inspecting the defenses when the German assault erupts without warning. He attempts to return to his poste de commandement, but Fallschirmjäger, who have landed near the Bilzebahn, open fire and cut off his route. Several civilians fleeing in panic are killed in the gunfire. Realizing that he cannot regain his headquarters, Jammers moves instead toward the position held by Sergeant Ballet west of the bridge. 2 DFS 230 gliders, carrying Unteroffizier Fritz Pohlmann and Oberleutnant Gustav Altmann, have landed nearby. Neither Jamaeus nor his men observe their descent. From his trench, Sergeant Ballet sees German soldiers advancing with black automatic weapons and jumping directly into the forward Belgian trenches. In the absence of Lieutenant Lejeune, who is on leave, Sergeant Ballet commands the platoon. His unit is reinforced by a machine gun detachment from 8 EE Compagnie under Adjutant-Chef Burgun. Ballet also has a 47mm anti-tank gun at his disposal. The platoon is attacked from multiple directions. Fallschirmjäger assaults, combined with repeated airstrikes by German fighter aircraft, prevent any effective maneuver. The unit is unable to assist in the defense of the bridge. Adjutant-Chef Burgun crawls to Captain Jamaeus with Ballet's report and requests permission to withdraw the survivors of his right flank from the road toward the Kip van Hees to his left flank north of the road. Jamaeus refuses. He needs those men to counter a possible frontal German attack. His concern is justified. Burgun's detachment receives only limited support from 10th Compagnie of 8th Regiment positioned on the Kip. Jammes promises a counterattack to relieve the pressure. It never materializes. The trenches held by Burgun are overrun by Gruppe Pohlmann. The glider carrying this Gruppe lands between Ballet's trenches and the Heesestraat, approximately 1 kilometer west of the Albert Canal. The landing zone is far from the intended objective. Nevertheless, the Fallschirmjäger launch a determined assault. Their attack breaks through Ballet's right flank and collapses the position. At 1100 on May 10th, 1940, Sergeant Ballet receives orders to withdraw the surviving men to a new defensive line behind the Lanaken Road. During the fighting and subsequent retreat, Ballet is seriously wounded. Command passes to Adjutant Chef Burgun, who is wounded shortly thereafter. From their new positions, the survivors witness German troops advancing behind Belgian prisoners used as human shields. The sight provokes anger and horror among the defenders. Approximately 500 meters behind the former positions of Lieutenant Bossert lies another strongpoint astride the Maastricht Road. This position is held by the Detachement Botil, composed of 4 groups deployed on both sides of the road. Soldiers share the trenches with civilians from the village, including many children who have sought shelter there. After reaching Ballet's former trenches, Capitaine Jammes informs Botil that he has come from the bridge and has seen no Germans. Morale improves briefly. The optimism is short-lived. German aircraft soon attack. Bombs devastate the trenches and inflict severe casualties. By mid-morning, the character of the battle begins to change. What began as a silent glider assault now transforms into a combined arms operation. Air power enters decisively. At this stage, the role of the 8th Fliegerkorps becomes decisive. Air support proves essential to the capture of the bridge at Veldwezelt, the other Albert Canal crossings, and Fort Eben-Emael. Liaison with the Luftwaffe is so important that Lieutenant Egon Deliker, one of the officers involved in the assault on the fort, serves not as a Fallschirmjäger but as a liaison officer directing air attacks against Belgian positions. The action of Sturmabteilung Koch and its Fallschirmjäger is decisive, yet the subsequent air bombardment contributes heavily to success. Flying artillery becomes a defining element of the German advance in Belgium. Junker 87 Stuka dive bombers and Dornier 17 bombers strike the bridge approaches. They bomb the crossroads at the Bilzerbahn and the Lanaken-Grotebahn Road. Belgian trenches are repeatedly hit. German field artillery batteries positioned behind Maastricht add to the destruction. Howitzer fire lands within meters of Ballet's former trenches. Panic spreads among the already depleted Belgian forces. After 2 Fallschirmjägergruppen assault the position, Botil gathers his exhausted men and withdraws south to a nearby farm in search of food. With both Ballet and Burgun wounded, he assumes command. Shortly after reaching the farm, German troops capture the group. At Maastricht, Botil refuses to give his name and rank. The interrogating German officer already knows his identity and records it himself. Elsewhere, the Fallschirmjäger adhere strictly to their timetable. This is particularly true of the Fallschirmjäger Pioniere of Gruppe Aepke, commanded by Oberjäger Helmut Aepke. Their glider lands on the northern slope above the canal. Their first task is to neutralize the demolition charges on the bridge. They destroy the ignition system and throw the explosives into the Albert Canal. They then clear obstacles and barricades from the bridge, using Belgian prisoners when necessary. The primary objective of Gruppe Aepke is the neutralization of casemate C beneath the bridge. The bunker is heavily armed. 2 heavy Maxim machine guns are positioned in the basement. Two light Maxim machine guns occupy the upper level. Another machine gun covers the frontal approach. 3 mortar embrasures complete its defensive layout. Casemate C is neutralized largely through circumstance. It is commanded by a junior lieutenant who is outside the position at the moment of attack, awaiting Lieutenant Reconnu, commander of 6th Compagnie, for inspection. Inside, command rests with Sergeant Lemoine and 15 men from 6th and 8th Companies of 2nd Régiment de Carabiniers. The bunker has only one exit. 84 steps lead from the bridge down to the canal. Any attempt to leave exposes the garrison to German fire. When the gliders appear, the defenders initially assume a Belgian Air Force exercise is underway. The first explosions immediately dispel this belief. Sergeant Lemoine attempts to reach the edge of the slope to assess the situation, but is driven back by machine gun fire. The men withdraw into the casemate and secure the armored doors. Their predicament worsens when they discover that their grenades lack detonator caps. Fallschirmjäger surround the bunker and blast open the southern armored door. Grenades and small explosive charges are thrown inside. 3 Belgian soldiers are wounded. An incendiary charge damages 2 machine guns, the armored doors, and a freshwater tank. Water flooding from the ruptured tank prevents the spread of fire. Panic spreads. The garrison attempts to abandon the casemate, but the damaged doors block the exit. A German-speaking Belgian calls out to the attackers. A Fallschirmjäger approaches and demands the surrender of weapons and evacuation of the wounded. The Germans promise medical care and order the men to remain calm. Assistance does not arrive immediately. During the night, the garrison hears Belgian artillery fire near the bridge. Hope rises that a counterattack is underway. Fear follows that the bridge may be demolished with them still inside. At approximately 9 o'clock on May 11, 1940, soldiers of 2nd Bataillon Schützen-Regiment 33 arrive to relieve the Fallschirmjäger. They prepare to clear the bunker using flamethrowers. The trapped garrison signals frantically. They are finally released. Medical aid is provided after German war correspondents arrive to film the scene. Casemate D, located approximately 800 meters north of the bridge, is defended by 7 E Compagnie of the Carabiniers. On May 10, 1940, it offers only limited resistance. Isolation increases throughout the day. A few ineffective rounds are fired toward the bridge. German artillery responds with heavy bombardment. Schützen-Regiment 33 advances from the south and captures the position at about 11 o'clock. By this stage, 6th Compagnie is isolated and out of ammunition. Resupply is impossible. The garrison of Casemate D has no alternative but to surrender. Although several strongpoints have fallen, Belgian resistance is far from broken. Reserve units are moving. Commanders are attempting to regain clarity. The decisive question remains: can the bridge still be retaken? Capitaine de Lange, commanding 10th Compagnie of 18th Régiment de Ligne, receives orders to organize a counterattack toward the bridge. 2 officers are assigned to lead it. No unit is able to descend from the Kip van Hees, breach the wire obstacles, deploy under fire, and advance. The attempt is abandoned. The Belgians lack manpower, coordination, and time. The German advance continues unchecked. From a position less than 150 meters away, Oberleutnant Gustav Altmann observes every movement of 10th Compagnie to the right of the bridge. He directs machine gun fire and calls in Stuka attacks. Each attempted counterattack is suppressed. A brief lull follows. Altmann now turns his attention to the remaining threats farther west. The trenches of Sergeant Schaumann, located 500 meters from the bridge and isolated pockets of resistance in the village streets remain his principal concerns. The Belgian reserve companies react with urgency in an effort to halt the German advance. Sergeant Vogli commands a small detachment and receives orders from Lieutenant Bolle to reconnoiter the immediate surroundings of the bridge. Captain Jamaez has ordered the bridge destroyed and now requires accurate information from the forward positions. The decisive question remains whether the demolition has been carried out. In the confusion of contradictory reports, uncertainty becomes as dangerous as enemy fire. Someone must confirm the truth at the bridge itself. Under heavy fire, Sergeant Voglet crosses the trenches and runs past the mayor's house, from where he gains a clear view of the bridge area. What he sees leaves no doubt. German Fallschirmjäger are already in full control of the Belgian positions. The bridge stands intact. He reports this immediately. His message is not believed. Conflicting signals suggest that the bridge has already been blown. Confusion paralyzes the Belgian communications network. Because of this uncertainty, a second reconnaissance patrol is dispatched under Sergeant Chaffard. When Sergeant Chaffard confirms that the bridge remains intact and firmly in German hands, hesitation gives way to the decision to counterattack. Sergeant Voglet and his men, now fully aware of the gravity of the situation, are ordered to lead the assault. The attacking force consists of an infantry company from the 18th Régiment de Ligne and a platoon of cyclistes frontières. From his position near the bridge, Oberleutnant Gustav Altmann observes their approach. He calmly prepares his defense. Machine guns are repositioned. Luftwaffe support is coordinated. German aircraft already dominate the airspace above Veldwezelt. The Belgian counterattack is broken before it can gain momentum. Belgian attempts to retake the bridge begin at 6:30 on May 10, 1940. Each effort is shattered against the solid and well-prepared Fallschirmjäger bridgehead. At this stage, Altmann radios that the situation is under control. The bridge remains standing. Assigned orders are being executed according to plan. On the right flank of the Belgian defensive system, south of the canal, lies a small artificial elevation known as the Kip van Hees. Unlike the trenches of the Carabiniers near the bridge, this position is held by troops of 18th Régiment de Ligne. It forms the southern boundary of the sector that includes the Vroonhoven Bridge. Capitaine de Lange commands 10th Compagnie. His command post stands at the northern end of the Kip van Hees, barely 20 meters from the forward trenches of Sergeant Balisse and Lieutenant Didier. From this elevated vantage point, de Lange immediately grasps the seriousness of the unfolding events. On the right sector, approximately 30 meters from the positions of Lieutenant de Valkemir and Adjutant Schaumanns, an auxiliary detachement of 11th Compagnie under Commandant Phillips has arrived during the night on prior orders. Capitaine de Lange enjoys a clear view of the battlefield. He watches the gliders descend and sees the Fallschirmjäger assault develop in real time. Without delay, he contacts his superiors. His report is explicit. 3 aircraft have landed between his position and the bridge. Their occupants have disembarked and are engaging Belgian forces. Despite this clarity, initial assumptions persist that the attack is directed against the Netherlands rather than Belgium. Adjutant Schaumanns, deputy commander of the détachement under Lieutenant de Valkemir, plays a central role in the sector of 10th Compagnie. He witnesses both the glider landings and the close fighting near the bridge. In later recollections, he explains that in the days before the invasion, positions shift frequently and officers are often absent. He and Sergeant Ballet temporarily replace missing officers. This explains his absence from certain official reports. He also notes that the Germans appear fully aware of his position. and understand that his machine guns cannot effectively support the Carabiniers defending the bridge. Schaumann's shouts that the attackers are Germans and orders his men to fire. The first reaction among the soldiers is shock. Some cry out. One man falls to his knees and begins to pray. Schaumann's repeats the order firmly. Machine gunner Pikey fires several bursts. German tracer rounds immediately sweep overhead. The fire originates from the plain near the canal slope, close to where Oberleutnant Altmann has established his command post. The German positions lie beyond effective Belgian range. Bronselaer reports that gliders have landed among the Carabiniers' trenches and suggests there is no immediate danger because the occupants may still be disorganized or asleep. He crawls forward to observe more closely, but gains no clear view. In reality, the Fallschirmjäger are already attacking a bunker. Smoke begins to rise. Shouting carries across the open ground. Schaumann's fires a star shell to illuminate the terrain between his trenches and the bridge. Explosions soon follow. German aircraft bomb the crossroads where the Grotebahn meets the Bilzebahn. Bombs strike the road toward Hees and the Carabiniers' command post. Fighter attacks intensify behind the Belgian lines. The water tower near the road is hit. Observer Regards flees under fire and reaches the trench in haste. Overhead, large German formations pass at altitude. Belgian anti-aircraft guns open fire. A Dornier 17 is struck and crashes near Vlietingen. Carabinier Carlier fires at Fallschirmjäger, attempting to assemble. Despite isolated successes, the German bombing continues relentlessly. Even as counterattacks are being organized on the ground, the Germans introduce another phase of their plan. Reinforcements now arrive from the air. 3 formations of 6 Junker 52 transport aircraft are allocated for the operation, 1 formation for each of the 3 Albert Canal bridges, with a single aircraft held in reserve. The pilots receive precise and uncompromising instructions. They are to maintain formation at an altitude of 200 to 300 meters. The parachute drops are to take place at 100 meters over Veldwezelt, 180 meters over Vroonhoven, and 200 meters over Karna. Even under heavy anti-aircraft fire, no deviation from course is permitted. The aircraft are not to be risked or destroyed under any circumstances. At 6:15 on May 10, 1940, Ringler's Fallschirmjäger of the Schwer Maschinengewehr Hauptzug jump over Veldwezelt. Belgian ground fire makes the drop extremely hazardous. Only the first Junkers 52 succeeds in completing its drop over the intended zone. The second aircraft manages to release only 2 men before climbing away to avoid further fire. Belgian soldiers observe the descent clearly. Caporal Corville later reports that dummy parachutists are also dropped, adding to the confusion. From the heights of the Kip van Hees, Adjutant Schaumann's watches the scene unfold. He notes that Ringler's men land behind the position of Sergeant Ballet. They encounter difficulties almost immediately. After 3 unsuccessful attempts to consolidate, they are forced to break off. Belgian fire disrupts the operation at every step. The first Junker 52 catches the Belgian defenders by surprise. No one fires at once. When the second aircraft approaches, Belgian machine guns open up. One Fallschirmjäger's parachute fails to deploy properly. Another becomes entangled in a power line. A third is mortally wounded during descent. The pilot, recognizing the danger, climbs to 200 meters and diverts towards Hees. Subsequent Fallschirmjäger land far west of the planned drop zone, near the Grotebahn and the water tower. This miscalculation places German troops behind Belgian lines. After regrouping, they attempt to advance, but are repeatedly halted by determined resistance. Between 11:30 and 1300, all German attacks against Schaumans's position are repelled. Despite these setbacks, the Fallschirmjäger succeed in recovering 2 weapon containers. Their mission remains unchanged: eliminate resistance in the trenches, particularly in the sector of Sergeant Ballet, and strike the Belgian flanks to prevent any organized counterattack. Gruppe 10 is intended to support the Schwer Maschinengewehr Hauptzug and integrate it into Gruppe Altmann. Its absence from Oberleutnant Gustav Altmann's official report remains unexplained. Franz Schindel later recalls meeting Ringler's men in Cologne prior to the operation. Though scattered and partially disorganized, their presence gradually erodes Belgian resistance. Oberfeldwebel Toschke, Stabsfeldwebel Lorenz, and Feldwebel Pohlmann steadily expand the bridgehead. By 9 o'clock, German observers detect the formation of a major Belgian counterattack. Luftwaffe intervention once again proves decisive. Altmann radios Aldinger's artillery unit and requests concentrated Stuka strikes. He subsequently calls for shelling of the trenches on the Kip van Hees, approximately 500 meters southwest of the bridge. Artillery fire follows swiftly. After roughly 1 hour, Belgian machine gun fire resumes from the battered positions. Adjutant Schaumans later describes the continued resistance. German snipers appear on rooftops and within captured trenches. Many Fallschirmjäger carry rifles fitted with telescopic sights. To avoid identification, Schaumans removes his rank insignia. He orders his men to locate and neutralize the snipers. One is spotted near the road to Hees and is shot. Others advance behind the water tower in 2 columns, carrying a machine gun. Schaumans withdraws his own weapon position by 15 meters and deliberately leaves his helmet in the former trench as deception. German fire subsequently strikes the empty position. After 9:30, Belgian artillery begins heavy bombardment around the bridge. Once again, Luftwaffe intervention proves decisive. Altmann requests precise strikes through Aldinger. At 10 o'clock, German 88mm flak guns engage the Belgian positions directly. Under combined artillery and air attack, resistance on the Kip van Hees begins to collapse. Schaumans later observes that German maps fail to mark the artificial hill accurately. Nevertheless, German field artillery and air units coordinate effectively to neutralize his position. Belgian defenders shift between trenches repeatedly to avoid detection and destruction. Despite their efforts, resistance gradually falters. By late morning, on May 10, 1940, the battle west of the bridge is effectively decided. The German bridgehead stands firm, reinforced from the air and supported by artillery, while Belgian defensive cohesion has been irreparably broken. The battle has entered a new stage. The Fallschirmjäger have secured a foothold, but they are exposed. The Belgian artillery has not fallen silent. Just before noon on May 10, 1940, renewed Belgian mortar and artillery fire forces Oberleutnant Gustav Altmann to request Junker 87 Stuka support once more. At 11:50, he calls for an immediate bombing raid. None arrives. 30 minutes later, Oberstleutnant Koch informs him that air support has been requested but cannot be provided at once. These are difficult moments for the Fallschirmjäger. Belgian bombardment continues without interruption, and the bridgehead is under sustained pressure. At approximately 1300, about an hour after the renewed bombardment begins, a reconnaissance officer from Infantry Regiment 93 establishes direct contact with Altmann. This liaison enables more accurate coordination of fire. It marks the first step toward a more precise bombardment of the Bilzebahn and the highway toward Vroonhoven, the Grotebahn. Adjutant Schaumans responds by firing red flares to coordinate the fire of his men and to signal to Altmann that Belgian forces are still resisting. Altman answers with green flares, indicating that assigned objectives have been secured. He then orders artillery fire against Schauman's position. Thick white smoke rises over the trenches, suggesting preparations for an assault. The Belgians initially fear gas and search desperately for Breek, who carries the detection strips used to confirm its presence. Breek cannot be found. Ammunition is now nearly exhausted. Schauman's orders bayonets fixed and prepares to repel a direct assault. After 5 tense minutes, the smoke begins to clear. One of his men suddenly shouts that 4 Germans have been captured. Schauman's believes the assault has been repelled. The 4 Germans belong to a reconnaissance patrol sent out by Oberleutnant Altman. After firing at one of the Belgian machine gun positions, they become entangled in a barbed wire hedge and are forced to stand and surrender. They shout not to shoot, remove their helmets and belts, and raise their hands. 2 Belgian soldiers help them free and escort them to the Belgian lines. There, the prisoners sit down, produce a pack of playing cards, and begin to play. Altman has a general idea of the Belgian position and continues to direct bombing and shelling. Schauman's men defend stubbornly, despite their limited means. More aircraft formations approach from Maastricht. A Junker 87 Stuka begins circling above the command post of Commandant Phillips. It then dives, with siren sounding, and releases its bomb over Schauman's sector. The explosion flattens a nearby machine gun nest. A second Junker 87 follows. The defenders open fire with machine guns and carbines. The aircraft descends to approximately 20 meters before releasing its bomb. The blast throws men into the air and showers them with stones and earth. Miraculously, no one is seriously injured. A third Junker 87 attacks. Machine gunner Peaky loads a fresh magazine and resumes firing. The Belgians press themselves into the earth for cover. After the explosion, they embrace one another, relieved to be alive. They shoot down the third Junker 87. It crashes near the trenches of Lieutenant Detier's men, but the price is severe. Machine gunners in the forward line are killed after being raked by fire from the guns of the first Junker 87. The defenders endure yet another attack, this time from a Heinkel 111. During this bombing run, they remain motionless to avoid drawing fire. One of their final acts is the destruction of a German observation balloon positioned on the eastern side of the bridge near the Dutch customs post. Piker destroys it with sustained machine gun fire. Shelling behind their lines continues without respite. Resistance cannot be sustained much longer. Schauman's and his men begin to withdraw. Relief finally reaches them. His lieutenant, Oscar de Valkenier, offers him a drink and instructs him to report to the commandant. Before departing, Schauman's explains how his men have repelled repeated attacks throughout the morning. He promises to return with ammunition. At the commandant's post, he is informed that ammunition supplies are critically low. Standing on the west side of the road near Kip van Hees, he attempts to gather additional men and ammunition. He concludes that the situation is lost. The glider troops have held for hours. Now, the ground forces of 6th Army begin to close the distance. Shortly before 1630, the 1st German Infantry of 2nd Bataillon, Schützen-Regiment 33, reached the bridge and established direct contact with the Fallschirmjäger. Fresh support arrives at the bridgehead. A Schwer MG Halbzug and 2 mortars reinforce the position. By the time these infantry units arrive, the bridgehead has expanded westward to approximately 1 kilometer. While German troops secure trenches south of the bridge, men of 3rd Company, zur besondere Verwendung 100 Bataillon, join them. Belgian counterattacks continue despite these reinforcements. One is organized by Lieutenant Bayeux, who brings 4 light T-13 tanks to strengthen the positions at Veldwezelt. Junker 87 Stuka attacks resume in an effort to disrupt these preparations. At 16:45, from his command post at Vroonhoven, Oberstleutnant Koch again requests Junker 87 support from 8th Fliegerkorps for Altmann. He assures Oberleutnant Altmann that he will assist him in holding the position. At 17:15, Altmann repeats his request for air support. Once more, the Junker 87 dive bombers do not arrive in time. The Fallschirmjäger take the initiative. They attack the advancing tanks using anti-tank guns and 3-kilogram explosive charges. Later, they employ a captured heavy anti-tank gun. 2 tanks are destroyed. The Belgian counterattack is halted. At 17:40, Koch radios Altmann with firm orders to hold the trenches at all costs. Reinforcements are advancing as rapidly as possible. Koch reports that the destruction of the bridges at Maastricht has delayed the arrival of heavy artillery. His assessment is more pessimistic than the situation at Veldwezelt warrants. At 1800, he states that German forces at Kana and Veldwezelt must have suffered heavy casualties. This is accurate for Kana, but not for Veldwezelt. Around the same time, Belgian 21-centimeter artillery begins shelling the bridge. No direct hits are recorded, but Altmann's primary objective remains under threat. At 20:30, after the arrival of approximately 1.5 German infantry companies, Belgian fire ceases. The Fallschirmjäger are able to relax briefly. Shortly after 21:30, Major Puschel, commander of Schützen-Regiment 33, relieves Oberleutnant Altmann and assumes responsibility for approximately 200 Belgian prisoners of war. Around this time, the Fallschirmjäger withdraw from the battlefield and move back toward Maastricht. At approximately 23:30, they meet Sturmgruppe Bataillon from Vroonhoven at a tobacco factory in the city. At 00 on May 11th, 1940, the men of the 4th Battery, under Commandant Dalk, without ammunition and without hope of relief, withdraw toward the village seeking shelter. Belgian resistance finally collapses. While moving toward Moppettingen, they are taken prisoner. In the final exchange of fire preceding their capture, Commandant Dalk and 5 of his men are shot dead. The battery loses 17 men in total. At the bridge of Veldwezelt, the human cost is stark. The Belgian army loses 116 men killed and approximately 400 taken prisoner. The German Fallschirmjäger suffer 8 killed and 30 wounded. Civilian losses are particularly severe. In Veldwezelt and nearby Kesselt, 43 civilians are killed and 45 wounded. For the soldiers, the bridge is a military objective. For the people of Veldwezelt, it is their street, their house, their village. Civilian casualties are exceptionally high because the bridge and its defensive system are physically embedded within the village. Machine gun positions, observation posts, and anti-tank weapons are sited in gardens, along embankments, and inside buildings. Civilian houses become integral elements of the defensive layout. When the attack begins at dawn on May 10th, 1940, there is no warning. Gliders land within meters of homes. Aircraft roar overhead. Explosions erupt among houses. Shock and confusion spread instantly. Civilians move at the worst possible moments. Some run into open streets during air attacks. Others remain inside buildings that soon collapse around them. Resistance at Veldwezelt does not disintegrate immediately. Fighting continues for many hours. Infantry of the 2nd Régiment de Carabiniers hold trench systems west of the bridge. Canal bunker crews continue to fire. German Fallschirmjäger face sustained and determined opposition. The battle spreads street by street through the village. As Belgian resistance persists, German commanders repeatedly request air support. Junkers Ju-87 dive bombers attack the bridge and the adjacent roads. Bombs fall on the Bilzerbahn and nearby buildings. Bombing accuracy remains limited. Blast waves and fragmentation sweep across entire streets. Houses collapse. Civilians sheltering in basements are buried beneath rubble. Artillery fire intensifies as the day progresses. Belgian guns conduct defensive and counter-battery missions. German forces respond with mortars and infantry support weapons. Shells strike houses rather than open ground. Flying debris causes secondary wounds. Fires spread rapidly between adjoining buildings. In this confined and densely built environment, military targets and civilian life are inseparably intertwined. The result is devastating civilian loss. By nightfall, on May 10, 1940, the bridge at Veldwezelt remains intact. The Fallschirmjäger have achieved their objective, but the cost, in soldiers, in prisoners, and in civilians caught between trench and bomb crater, reveals the brutal character of this new form of warfare. And that concludes today's episode. On May 10, 1940, at 5:20, 10 DFS 230 gliders descend over Veldwezelt. Within minutes, Fallschirmjäger of Sturmabteilung Koch land directly on Belgian defensive positions. Bunker N is assaulted. Trench systems north and south of the bridge are engaged. Demolition cables are cut. Telephone lines fail. Reports conflict. Belgian officers attempt to organize counterattacks from the Kip van Hees and from positions west of the bridge, while German parachute reinforcements attempt hazardous drops under fire. Luftwaffe dive bombers intervene repeatedly. By afternoon, Infantry of II Bataillon, Schützen-Regiment 33, reach the canal and begin consolidating the bridgehead. What unfolds at Veldwezelt is not a brief action, but a sustained engagement fought in trenches, inside bunkers, and between civilian houses built into the defensive perimeter. It is one of the earliest examples of a precision airborne coup de main executed in coordination with artillery and air power. In preparing this episode, we drew on several key works. Chief among them is The Fall of Ibn Email, the daring airborne assault that sealed the fate of France by James Mrazek. We also consulted The Fall of Ibn Email, Belgium 1940, by Chris McNabb. In addition, we relied on specialized research into the Albert Canal operations, including the silent attack, the Fallschirmjäger capture of the bridges of Veldwezelt, Vroonhoven and Canne, 1940, by Oscar Gonzalez, Thomas Stinke and Ian Tannehill. If you would like to explore this subject further, including photographs, detailed maps, original documents, and the complete source base behind this series, visit www.worldwar2-sof.com, where you will find dedicated pages on Fort Ibn Email and the Albert Canal crossings at Veldwezelt, Vroonhoven, and Canne. In the next episode, we move south along the Albert Canal and examine the assault of Sturmabteilung Koch on the bridge at Vroonhoven, the second target in Unternehmen Danzig. But for now, thank you for listening to the Special Forces in World War II podcast. I'm your host, Michael Vyers, signing off. And that concludes this mission briefing, fellow warriors of knowledge. We've navigated through the trenches of information, delving deep into the battlefields of history. As we wrap up this episode in our campaign for understanding, remember that knowledge is your most potent weapon. Stay vigilant and keep sharpening your intellectual arsenal. We'll rendezvous again for another episode, continuing our relentless pursuit of enlightenment. Until then, keep your mind sharp, your curiosity burning, and your determination unwavering. Simultaneously, you are hereby alerted to our outposts on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, fortifying our information dissemination. Should you possess any pertinent intelligence to bolster our mission, transmit your findings with no hesitation. Your contributions shall be prominently acknowledged within the operational archives. Furthermore, for those prepared to provide substantial reinforcement, navigate to our Patreon forward base and enlist. Your support is integral to sustaining our forward thrust. Carry forth the legacy. Dismissed.